On a quiet morning more than 40 years ago, a young mother packed a few bags, buckled her small daughter into the car, and drove away. She told no one where she was going. She left behind no note, no forwarding address, no explanation. By nightfall, both mother and child had vanished. At first, family members assumed it was temporary, a cooling-off period after a bitter custody dispute. But days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Phone calls went unanswered. Letters were returned unopened. Eventually, the truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't a visit. It was an abduction. Police launched an investigation, but in the early 1980s, parental kidnapping cases were often misunderstood. There were no Amber Alerts, no national databases, and when a parent took their own child, the law moved slowly, sometimes not at all. Still, authorities believed the mother knew exactly what she was doing. She had lost custody. Court records showed escalating tensions and warnings from judges. Friends recalled her saying she would never let them take her daughter away. And now the child was gone, removed not by force but by trust. As the years passed, the case grew colder. The father searched relentlessly, filing missing person reports, contacting law enforcement agencies, and following up on every tip. But leads dried up. The child grew older somewhere else under a different name, unaware that her entire identity had been rewritten. And the mother? She disappeared into the background of American life. She crossed state lines. She blended in. She worked jobs that required little paperwork. She introduced herself by a new name and avoided official systems whenever possible. To neighbors and co-workers, she was just another woman living quietly. No one suspected she was one of the longest-running fugitives in a parental kidnapping case. For decades, the system failed to find her. Until one day, 40 years later, that silence shattered. In a moment so ordinary it felt unreal, law enforcement finally caught up with her. Not hiding, not running, but living openly under an assumed identity. The question wasn't just how she stayed hidden for so long. It was what happens when a child stolen decades ago finally learns the truth, and whether justice can still exist after 40 years on the run. By the time the mother crossed her second state line, she had already begun erasing herself. The name on her driver's license was no longer hers. The address she gave employers didn't exist on any official record. She paid cash whenever possible, avoided doctors, and never enrolled her daughter in systems that required birth certificates or social security numbers. Every decision was shaped by one goal: stay invisible. To the outside world, she was just another struggling single mother trying to start over. She moved often, never staying long enough for questions to form. Small towns, temporary jobs, rentals with no lease. She avoided friendships that might lead to curiosity. Her daughter grew up believing a carefully constructed story. She was told her father didn't want her, that he was dangerous, that they were hiding for a reason. Over time, the lie became normal, not because it was believable, but because it was all the child had ever known. Meanwhile, the father never stopped searching. Every birthday passed with uncertainty. Every holiday came with hope that the next phone call would finally bring answers. He followed rumors across state lines, contacted missing children organizations, and worked with law enforcement whenever possible. But without modern tracking tools, the trail stayed cold. In the background, laws were changing. Parental kidnapping began to be taken more seriously. National databases expanded. Information sharing improved. Cases once buried in filing cabinets were slowly digitized. Old warrants resurfaced. Names were cross-checked. Faces were scanned. The mother adapted, but time was no longer on her side. As her daughter became an adult, cracks formed in the story. Questions grew harder to deflect. Documents didn't match. Memories didn't align. And the mother, once confident in her control, grew anxious. She had lived for decades believing she had beaten the system. What she didn't realize was that the system hadn't been looking for her the same way it once had. It was waiting for one overlooked record, one outdated alias, one moment of normal life that required her real identity. After 40 years of hiding in plain sight, the smallest detail, something she believed was harmless, would finally lead investigators straight to her front door. And when it did, the past she had spent a lifetime running from came rushing back all at once. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Cold cases don't usually explode back to life. They whisper. For decades, the mother's name sat buried in old reports. A faded photograph, a missing child entry, a warrant that never quite disappeared. Investigators rotated out. Departments merged. Paper files became digital shadows. And still nothing moved. Until one tip changed everything. It didn't come from a detective chasing the past. It came from an ordinary moment in the present. Someone recognized something that didn't feel right. A name that didn't match an age. A story that conflicted with records. A detail that triggered suspicion. When that information reached authorities, it landed on a desk already crowded with unresolved cases. First, it looked like nothing, but when analysts ran the alias through modern databases, connections began to appear. Old addresses overlapped. Dates lined up. A woman long presumed untraceable suddenly had a digital footprint. Faint but real. Investigators reopened the case quietly. They didn't notify the media. They didn't alert the suspect. They moved cautiously, knowing that someone who had avoided capture for 40 years wouldn't hesitate to disappear again. Records were rebuilt from scratch. Birth certificates compared. School enrollments examined. Employment histories analyzed. Every piece of data was treated like a puzzle fragment, useless alone, powerful together. Then came the confirmation. A document surfaced linking the alias to a real-world interaction years earlier, a moment when the mother had needed to exist legally, if only briefly. That interaction created a record she never knew could be traced decades later. With that, the case stopped being theoretical. Surveillance teams were deployed. Investigators watched from a distance, studying routines. What they saw wasn't a fugitive hiding in fear. It was a woman living a quiet, ordinary life, walking her dog, shopping for groceries, chatting with neighbors who had no idea who she really was. But ordinary routines don't erase extraordinary crimes. Authorities waited for the right moment, a time when they could act without risk, without chaos, without giving her a chance to run. For the first time in 40 years, law enforcement knew exactly where she was, and they were ready to end the lie. The arrest didn't happen during a raid or a dramatic chase. It happened on a sidewalk. On a quiet morning, the woman stepped outside her home just like she had hundreds of times before. She clipped a leash onto her dog's collar, locked the door behind her, and began her usual walk through the neighborhood. To anyone watching, she was just another resident starting her day. She had no idea officers were already in position. For weeks, investigators had studied her routine. They knew when she left the house, which route she took, how long she stayed out. They waited for a moment that wouldn't endanger her, the public, or the woman who, unknown to her neighbors, had been living under a false identity for decades. When they approached, they spoke calmly. No sirens, no raised voices. They called her by her real name. She stopped walking. For a brief second, it seemed like she might deny everything. But 40 years of running had taken their toll. Her shoulders sagged. She didn't ask why they were there. She didn't ask how they found her. She knew. As officers took her into custody, neighbors watched in confusion. Some assumed it was a mistake. Others pulled out phones, sensing something unusual unfolding. Few could have imagined they were witnessing the end of one of the longest-running parental kidnapping cases in recent memory. At the station, the woman said very little. She confirmed her identity. She acknowledged the alias. She offered no apology and no explanation, only a quiet acceptance that the life she had built on a lie was over. For investigators, the arrest was a victory. For the father, it was something more complicated. After 40 years, answers were finally within reach. But so was pain that had never healed. The child he had lost was no longer a child at all. She had grown up without him, shaped by a story that wasn't true. And now she was about to learn everything. As news of the arrest spread, reactions were divided. Some saw the woman as a criminal who stole a life. Others saw a mother who refused to let go. But the law is not built on sympathy. It is built on facts. and the fact was undeniable. A child had been taken, hidden, and denied the truth for 4 decades. The final reckoning was no longer about capture. It was about consequences. The hardest part didn't come with handcuffs. Came with the truth. When authorities finally informed the daughter, now an adult with a life of her own, they did so carefully. Investigators and counselors were present, knowing that what she was about to hear would fracture the reality she had lived in for decades. The woman she believed was her protector, her mother, had been running from the law since childhood. Her name, her birthplace, even pieces of her past had been constructed to keep a secret buried. The man she was told had abandoned her hadn't disappeared at all. He had been searching, filing reports, waiting, hoping, for 40 years. Reunions in cases like this aren't cinematic. There is no instant embrace, no neat resolution. Instead, there is confusion, anger, grief, and loss, stacked on top of each other. The daughter wasn't just processing a crime. She was mourning a childhood that had been rewritten without her consent. For the father, justice came with a bitter edge. He had his answers, but time could not be returned. Missed birthdays, graduations, the ordinary moments that make up a life, all gone. In court, prosecutors laid out the evidence. Falsified documents, multiple identities, decades of evasion. The defense spoke of fear, of a mother convinced she was protecting her child. The judge listened and then ruled. Love, the court said, does not excuse kidnapping. Fear does not justify erasing a parent. The sentence marked the official end of the woman's life on the run. But the emotional consequences were far from over. The daughter faced years of untangling truth from lies. The father faced learning how to be present in a life already lived. And the public was left with an unsettling question. How many similar stories never end this way? Parental kidnappings often don't involve strangers. They happen quietly, behind closed doors, disguised as protection or love. And when they succeed, the damage lasts longer than any prison sentence. This case wasn't just about an arrest after 40 years. It was about time stolen and the impossibility of giving it back. If this story made you think differently about justice, family, or the meaning of truth, subscribe for more real cases that deserve to be remembered. Because some crimes don't end when the fugitive is caught. They end when the truth finally comes home.